A lot of our friends and kind of audience of the first book had also kind of reached out to us and was like, hey, like, what do you guys like to eat when you're actually skiing? It's clear that you like to eat well after the fact or before the fact, but what are you bringing with you on your ski tour or on your adventure at the mountain? And that kind of got us thinking. And here we are with ski snacks.
Welcome back to the 10 Adventures podcast. Today we are talking about eating well while adventuring. Our guests today are Lily and Max Ritter, and together they have explored the world on skis and are on a mission to improve nutrition while we are all out adventuring. Their new book, Ski Snacks, Easy, Tasty Recipes for Powder Days and Mountain Adventures, has already brought joy to my household as we have been sampling some of these recipes in the book. Hi, Lily and Max. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having us on the show.
Your book starts with a great story about how the two of you met. Can you share that?
Yeah, we met. We both went to school at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And I was a senior in college. And Max had graduated, but he was still taking advantage of the backcountry ski club trips that cost like $25 for the whole weekend. And it covered your food, your lodging, your gas to get there. And so he was still attending the trips, which I don't really blame him for. And we met in a yurt on Cameron Pass in Colorado. And we had kind of like, we packed like 25, 26 college students into probably an 8-person yurt. And you didn't, like, your food on the trip, it wasn't necessarily the best food, but it could get you by. And so we had this like gigantic bag of Krusty's pancake mix. And we had kind of like both offered to help cook for all the degenerate college kids in the morning. So we met in the yurt. But I feel like one of my first memories that like relates well to the cookbook, especially, was that we were flipping pancakes from a mix for a bunch of tired college kids.
I remember it pretty much the same way, so it must be true.
And this Ski Snacks book is your second book. You have an earlier book, a cookbook for ski bums. What led you to write this book specifically about snacks, but also like what are you trying to tackle with all these, these two books about nutrition, specifically for people who are known for eating ramen, Doritos, and energy drinks?
Yeah. Well, much like our first book, I would say our second book was also kind of born out of a bit of necessity. Living in a mountain town, being a ski bum, it's hard to get good food, especially when you're out just skiing all day. Whether you're at the resort, whether you're backcountry touring, Nordic skiing, whatever it is, you need to eat. It's just a fact. And the first book was mostly recipes to be consumed at home, at the dinner table, at the breakfast table with your friends and family. Some of them were, whatever the opposite of portable is. So they were very hard to bring with you on your adventure. But that second book, Ski Snacks, we really just decided to focus on portability above all. So things that are, small, light, but also very delicious and nutritious for when you're out skiing. A lot of our friends and kind of audience of the first book had also kind of reached out to us and was like, hey, like, what do you guys like to eat when you're actually skiing? Like, it's clear that you like to eat well after the fact or before the fact, but what are you bringing with you on your ski tour or on your adventure at the mountain? And that kind of got us thinking, and here we are. With ski snacks.
What makes skiing snacks unique?
That's a good question. I think that most of the time when you go skiing, it takes a really long time. Like whether you ski at the resort or in the backcountry, unless you're lucky enough to live right at the base of a resort where maybe you go for a couple laps. Like usually it's an all-day event. And so by the nature of that, you get really hungry because you're skiing all day and you maybe are out for like 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't know, 10 or 12 hours if the skiing is really good. And so you're really hungry and you're working hard. And I would say going to a resort, the food at the resort is quite expensive at most ski resorts in the US. And so moving here as ski bums, like we're pretty cheap. So, we're trying to ski all day and not spend a ton of money. And then in the backcountry, you're just really hungry. And when you're ski touring all day for 6 to 8 hours, you kind of get tired of just granola bars and goos, and that kind of stuff just is not super satisfying if you're eating it all day. And so I would say another great thing about ski snacks is you're usually out in the cold, so you can bring a lot of stuff it's not going to melt. So I would say a lot of these recipes, maybe some of them like the chocolatey ones aren't as great in the summer because they kind of melt, but you have a little bit of forgiveness in the snow. And then usually when you go ski touring, unlike running or biking, you have a pretty big backpack, maybe a really big backpack, depending on how good you are at packing. I always have a huge backpack because I love eating so much and I'm not really willing to sacrifice anything. So you have a little more wiggle room to bring real food. And maybe it's not entirely real food. Maybe you got some bars and stuff in there, but I think the fact that you have the space to bring it makes it so that we really feel like you could be eating real food all day when you ski. You don't have to eat packaged granola bars and candy, which is still good. We still eat a lot of candy.
I love candy.
I know on backcountry trips here in my neck of the woods, whenever you have real food, like day 2 or 3, people who are just eating ramen or eating packaged stuff, there's what? You got apple slices? You've got banana bread? And they're just it's like you've got gold bars in your bag. They're just so excited. And you get tired of this ultra processed food really quick, especially if you're out skiing all day.
Totally.
Yeah,
And there's
it's also
something so powerful about just eating a sandwich on a summit. That's just my favorite thing in the world.
I think our recipes are delicious, but also it's a really great venue for creating a cookbook because most of the time when people are skiing, everything tastes good. So we have a pretty the audience is an easy sell. Everyone's really hungry.
You two have traveled all over the world skiing and exploring. I wonder how that influenced your approach to recipes and how you cook.
Yeah, we definitely have been very lucky to do a lot of skiing internationally, whether it's Europe, Asia, Canada. We live in the States. We live outside Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And it's honestly just fascinating to see how other ski cultures eat. Obviously, I think my favorite would either be the French Alps. They really, really know how to do it there. Italy's pretty good too, but Japan was also, just so different. And there's a lot to be learned from these cultures, whether it's flavors or cooking styles. There's just so much out there in the world. People eat well everywhere. So a lot of those trips have definitely influenced some things in our book. Like, for example, we have Japanese style onigiri in Ski Snacks book. Very easy to make at home, turns out. So we bring that a lot. There's a lot of, sandwiches and baked goods inspired by the Alps. Because when we're over there, it's just basically we're going to eat croissants and to go skiing on the side a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like traveling to ski is it's about so much more than the skiing. And we've been on so many ski trips where the skiing has honestly not been that great. And so we spent a lot of time eating, which is also, I would say they're equivalent in how much we love each thing. And so we've spent a lot of time, skiing in Europe where there's no snow, no good snow. So we, eat all day. And there's just, I think so many of the things that we've eaten, whether it's Japan or in Europe or really all over that we've eaten and thought, oh, we should figure out how to make this at home because we should totally be eating apple strudel while we ski at home. Why don't we do that at home more? It's awesome.
My wife and I still talk about the apple strudel. It's at the top of gondola in the Dolomites, Legozoy. And it's we had it 10 years ago and still every time we see apple strudel, we're no, it's not gonna reach that one. I'm gonna have to try your apple strudel recipe because it's really hard to get good apple strudel. So I've tried a few of the recipes in the book, but I'm gonna add that one to my list now.
Yeah.
Your recipes are also down to a community of friends that helped you, make this book come alive. Can you talk about how you kind of used your community of skiers to make a great cookbook?
Yeah, that's one of, I think, our favorite parts about this book is that there are tons of recipes from friends and people we've met while we're skiing and people really important to us. in our lives that have contributed recipes, and even just kind of sidebar thoughts and things like that. But when we were putting together the book, we reached out to our community and just asked people what they like to eat and asked if anybody wanted to contribute to the book. And we honestly got everybody like had something from a different corner of the culinary world that they wanted to contribute. And so there are a lot of recipes like that. Like we have a bunch of tailgate drinks from our friend Ariel, who is just the queen of tailgate cocktails. Really cocktails anywhere. Yeah.
She's the backcountry bartender in the friend group for sure.
Yeah. But we have cinnamon roll flatbreads from our friend Nora. And I think just it ties so well into the community aspect of skiing because we moved here to be in the mountains and to ski. But what really kept us here in the Tetons is the people and the community that like builds the fabric of this place. And so I think that like bringing those people in is just the celebration of like the amazing community of people who live in a mountain town and feeding each other and skiing.
You mentioned you got to test all these snacks. Were there any suggestions where you just said, "Oh no, this is not going to work for our book"?
Yeah.
That's funny. We actually spent a while thinking about that, while we were making the book, because there's a lot of things that we focused on the portability more than anything. That was kind of the number one criteria, other than it being good and tasty and delicious, obviously. But can't really take it skiing if you can't physically take it anywhere. So there was a few things that just didn't really make the cut because they fell apart, or they just got too smushed when you put them in a backpack. I think one thing that I was a little bit bummed about not making some of the cut was some baked goods with frosting on it, for example. Like I love cupcakes with vanilla frosting or some sort of berry compote on them or something, but that just doesn't travel well no matter what you do.
It takes a lot. I have definitely transported like frosted cupcakes or cakes for friends like in my backpack to the top of a mountain to try to surprise them for their birthday. And it takes it doesn't lend itself to everyday snacking. But I would say I was thinking about that too. And I think maybe it is just stubbornness. But I feel like once we decided like the apple strudel or the quiche are a good example because they use like flaky pastry.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, we need to figure out how to take this skiing. And we had a bunch of like iterations of it that exploded. And a lot of it did have to do with packaging. Some of our snacks just need to be in a hard-sided container. So they maybe are not going to work well if you have to have everything in your pockets. But I think we had a lot of failed creations or things that didn't work that well, but we just then went back and we felt really determined to make it work. I was like, now I need to be able to eat quiche while I ski even more because it didn't work the first time.
You both grew up in families that prioritize home cooked, healthy meals. What's being lost as more and more, not just in skiing, but kind of around the world, we're stopping, a lot of people are just stopping to cook food.
For me, it's kind of a lot of stuff starts tasting the same when it's not home cooked. If you're always buying the same, pre-packaged candy or energy bars or whatever it is, like you can only eat so many Cliff Bars in your life. Eventually, they're just boring. So I think,
sorry, Cliff Bar.
Yeah, sorry, Cliff Bar. I'll still eat one from time.
Yeah.
But I think, there's just this kind of like homogenization of flavors and just kind of makes life a little less interesting when you're not out there eating your own food. And I also think that there's a lot to be said about knowing what ingredients go into your food and being able to control that. And the best way to do that is by, making the food yourself. I'm not going to preach about, eating healthy and only eating certain ingredients. That's not the business we're in. I'm a firm believer in if it's, good and you know what's in there, like eat as much of it as you want, especially if you're out just crushing calories while you're out skiing. And then the third thing too is just kind of the community aspect of skiing, like Lily talked about, and that kind of transfers into actually preparing your food for skiing as well. So, we'll often the night before a big ski tour, we'll be making a trip plan with friends or something. And part of that process is often like preparing the meals and the snacks and the après stuff that you're going to bring for the next day. And it's kind of fun to just spend some time in the kitchen beforehand, takes your mind off whatever big objective you have the next day and allows you to focus on fueling yourself.
I think one of the beautiful parts of the book is it pays for itself in a few trips. And I just thought, you mentioned Cliff Bars. If you just start making your own kind of energy bar, you buy this book and, 4 or 5 trips out and you're actually ahead of the game. But I think what's really key is that it's easy. And you label the recipes as green, blue, and black. The green, I think my kids can make. So it really is, a few ingredients, not any technique at all, but super, super doable. And I was wondering if you could maybe share, like, what's the easiest recipe that you two just love, and is a tasty snack that you can take skiing?
I would say my go-to are the chocolate chip cookies. I'm not much of a baker. That's definitely Lily's role in our relationship. But that's one thing that I can get every single time. And I think they never get old.
You're really good. You're better at making chocolate chip cookies than me now. Max has really fine-tuned chocolate chip cookie. He really, yeah.
Yeah, they're just so satisfying every time.
I think even easier, though, our friend Sarah contributed this recipe, and I have been eating it nonstop ever since. And she makes, they're called Ants on a Date. They're very kid-friendly, too. I think we have that marked in the book. But it's just a date sliced open, put peanut butter in it, chocolate chips. Sometimes I'll even put other stuff. Like you could put more peanuts in it. You could put M&Ms, you could put candy. But it's super easy. And they do really well in the winter because the peanut butter kind of gets cold. And so they stay together really well. I think that one is if we're at home and we're about to leave the house and go skiing or go do anything outside and we don't have anything, that's usually, we always have dates in the pantry and we always have peanut butter. And there's usually chocolate chips. That's kind of a foolproof way to have your own snacks.
Yeah. I think a third one too is the miso soup that's in the beverages section of the book. There's really nothing easier to make than miso soup as long as you have a little thermos to bring it in. On those like really cold days, it's just feels so good. Just warms you up from the inside. Salty, so if you're working hard, there's good electrolytes in there. Takes literally 5 minutes to make.
I was intrigued by the analysis of how to package ski snacks. And I realized I've never really thought about this. And you two definitely have a very deep appreciation on this topic. And so what are some tips to package snacks for a day skiing that maybe isn't obvious to people like me, who I just either wrap it in paper or put it in a bag and stuff gets smushed to heck and I just eat whatever comes?
Yeah. Honestly, that was a huge part of the book. And actually as we were writing the book, we talked to a lot of people to figure out what they thought their biggest hurdle was in terms of eating their own food out in the backcountry. And honestly, the biggest thing was packaging it. I feel like a lot of folks would say, oh, I make this and this, but sometimes when I bring it, it's crushed to a pulp and it's still, like a PB&J, that smush does still taste good, but it does lose some of the effect if you worked really hard to make this apple strudel or this cake and all of a sudden it's just crumbs. And so I think we experimented a lot with different vessels, and I would say and it really depends on the snack. Some things just kind of need a hard-sided container and they can be small. We've experimented with finding just small, lightweight ones. Like some things, I keep bringing up the quiche, but that is a great example. It does need to be in a hard-sided container because it is just very vulnerable to getting pummeled. Like especially if you crash once on your skis and it's in your pocket, you have no chance of eating a quiche intact. And then there's things like foil. Like we use a ton of foil in that bees wrap, like waxy stuff. Some things just, I find sandwiches, like you can put a sandwich in a bag, but it kind of slides around, and things like that, like foil or a wax wrap kind of support the snack. So I would say there's just a huge variety. There's definitely not one correct way, and there's not really any wrong way unless your backpack is filled with crumbs, which we've had a lot of spilled messes. But I would say just really thinking about having like a couple options. And if you really want to eat something on your ski day, thinking about how you're going to bring it maybe before you make it is helpful, because you could work really hard on making something and then realize that you don't really have a good way to transport it. So yeah, we definitely use plastic Ziploc bags sometimes and just try to reuse them. We have some of those stasher bags that are those silicone reusable ones.
Dude.
I would say everything looks different. Sometimes my backpack looks like a disaster. It doesn't. I have just all these different containers of various sizes of experimenting of what works the best. But yeah, I would say just variety.
I want to give listeners an idea of the types of recipes that are in the book. And I wonder if we can go through the different sections and maybe you can give your one of your favorite recipes in each section. And so to start off with, you've got a lot of great spreads to lead off in the book. And is there one in there that you like?
Well, there's a few options in there. We had talked about the miso peanut sauce earlier. That one is delicious. It's an ingredient in some of our sandwiches. Very easy to make. It's also something that we just kind of often snack on its own. We like to make peanut noodles and stuff for dinner at home. Recipe from the first book. But yeah, all the kind of mayonnaise based ones too, just key ingredients for all the sandwiches, just add some tanginess and a deeper flavor to certain things. So the spreads are kind of like the glue and the background flavor for some of the other ingredients, or sorry, some of the other recipes in the book.
Oh, I just say I love the pesto. I feel like we always have a jar of it, and you can make it with really any type of green, and it just lives in the fridge. It's really good for the caprese sandwich. But honestly, yeah, if you have pesto, you can throw it on a sandwich with egg and cheese, and it's like a done deal.
I made the miso peanut sauce. Loved it on the weekend. We just put it with a stir fry and rice, and we usually just make peanut sauce, and that was a great addition. I've never been able to make pesto, so I'm gonna give that a go and see if I could, because my pesto always turns out terrible. So that's good. Maybe we have a long weekend coming up here. I'm gonna give that a go because I'd love to be able to make my own pesto. Let's move on to the quick bites. There's lots of great little treats there. What's a favorite one or one that you think is really cool?
We mentioned the onigiri earlier as well. I think that's kind of my favorite. It's just a good kind of throwback to this epic trip to Japan that we had a few years ago. Like I said, they're actually quite easy to make. You just need sushi rice and whatever filling you want. There's, the traditional Japanese style is the tuna mayo. You can get it at any convenience store in Japan, like a 7-Eleven. And they're pretty easy to make in batches too, because you're going to make a cup of sushi rice. So that's, I don't know, 5 or 6 onigiris. We actually brought back this little mold from Japan. It's this little silicone thing that you can just pack with rice, put the filling in and squeeze it shut. So if you don't have one of those, you can still make them by hand. They turn out honestly just as well, but the mold is just kind of cool because it has that really traditional cute triangular shape. Kind of allows you to pack it in really tight, just makes them a little bit more transportable.
I use the onigiri and I've never been able to do it because it always sticks to my hand. And in your recipe, you explain, get your hands wet. So I made those on the weekend. They don't look like triangles. They look almost like snowballs, kind of
Yeah.
oblong snowballs. My family was loving it. I did something different. I put smoked salmon, green onion, and mayo.
Nice.
And yeah, the family's like, this is as good as Japan, Dad. So I
Nice.
got big points because they love onigiri, but here where we are, it's like $8 for one, and it just doesn't make sense. You can't get 3 onigiris for the kids if for that. But yeah, they're easy, and yeah, the hand wetting. That was what I was missing.
I usually have a big mixing bowl that I fill with water that I'm just dipping my hands in all the time.
That's a good one. I would say I think the date balls, the energy balls, are maybe my favorite in that, because I think it also embodies the idea of just using whatever you have in the pantry. It's a super flexible recipe, and we have a bunch of different iterations of it. So you can kind of mix and match. It's just the ultimate flexible energy ball recipe. We always have a couple different types, really, no matter where we go. And so you can kind of also never get sick of them because you can just keep experimenting with what you want to put in them. And if you don't have something, you can swap it out with something else. So I feel like that is, it kind of embodies the ethos of easy, flexible ski snacks. And they're easy to store. We keep 100 of them in the freezer at a time.
Yeah, true.
You have a bunch of different Summit sandwiches, and I wonder, instead of maybe given a specific sandwich, what are some of the characteristics that make a great sandwich? And then how do you keep it from getting slimy? Because that's like my problem. You get to the top and you got this little kind of like
Yeah,
mushy mess.
totally. Well, I think to me the biggest characteristic is good layers. Assembling it in a certain order. We actually have a little sidebar in the book that talks about that. Uh, I don't think that there's necessarily a right way to put together a sandwich, but there's definitely a few wrong ways. And making sure that you have enough of like the spread or the sauce to kind of actually like keep it all glued together. And then I'll sometimes modify the recipes a little bit if I know that it's going to be a particularly cold or a particularly hot day to go skiing. I generally won't put like tomatoes on sandwiches in the winter, because the tomatoes just generally aren't very good in the winter. I mean, depending on where you live, but definitely not around here. And sometimes instead of using like spinach or some sort of like easily wilty green, I'll throw something a little bit more sturdy, like kale or even crunchy cabbage or something on there. But yeah, the sliminess, I think it really just comes down to the ingredients, and the quality of the bread is also huge. Thicker bread tends to prevent stuff from getting slimy in my experience, but you also don't want the bread to be so thick that you're only eating bread. Um,
Also toast it. We have a lot of sandwiches where we toast the bread, and I
yeah.
think that really helps the integrity of the sandwich.
hmm Lightly toasting. I don't think heavily toasting, because then it becomes crumbly again. So there's kind of a happy medium for a lot of this, but
I've been known to scorch some bread.
Lily,
I always turn the toaster up so high.
she does. Yeah. And
It's never quite toasted enough, then I'll put it in again and then walk away. And then my sandwiches are always kind of black. Max is definitely the king of the sandwiches. He was the project leader on the sandwich chapter.
Yeah. And definitely the number one product tester.
For sure.
Moving on to baked goods, there's lots of great recipes there. The cinnamon bun or cinnamon flatbreads are one that I definitely, we're going to try here, maybe do it this weekend. But is there, you mentioned chocolate chip cookies is another kind of go-to in there that is just, readers have to try.
Yeah, I think baked goods are that's my favorite chapter in the book. I probably bake something every day. It's something that I love so much, and it like relaxes me. That's like what I do if I need to kind of clear my head. I would say that the mini marzipan cakes are, I think, one of my favorite recipes, maybe in the whole book.
I would second that.
Yeah, they're just so like, I think it's a kind of a surprising flavor. The marzipan, and you can get it at most grocery stores. It's just almond and sugar paste. And I usually make like a bigger marzipan cake that's like a go-to for dinner parties that I know that my friends will fight over because it's super dense and sweet and salty and delicious. And but I really want, and it's also, the denseness makes it a really good pocket snack. So I made it in little muffin tin sized molds, and so I would say that one is a really good one. And then also the butter mochi is something that has been, I feel like that was the snack of the winter this winter. We made it so much, and we that's another one that's kind of a surprising flavor, which I think is another goal that I feel like I always have in bringing something. Some of our recipes, like classic chocolate peanut butter type flavor profiles, but I think it's really fun to offer someone something on the Skin Tracker chairlift that they're not expecting. And so that's another one that utilizes this like sweet glutinous rice flour that we usually have to get when my family's from Washington, so we'll go back and go to the Asian grocery store and get it there, or you can order it online. But butter mochi is a Hawaiian snack, and so if you go to Hawaii, it's in like any general store. They have it in the fridge. And my aunt lives on the Big Island of Hawaii, and so when last time we went to visit her, we were eating it and both looked at each other and we're like, "Oh, we have to eat this skiing. It's perfect.
So good.
It's like dense and chewy, and it is really durable, which is like the key component to a ski snack." So I would say, honestly, if I could keep talking, I'll probably label every recipe in the cookbook is good, but every baked good is especially good.
Let's move on to sippables. You mentioned miso, which is great. Is there another sippable drink, something warm that's going to warm you up on a, freezing cold ski day that you like?
I think something that is always tastes especially good is something that's less sweet, kind of like the miso, but also the carrot ginger soup is really delicious. Especially when it's warm, it just kind of warms your soul from the inside when it's snowing really hard. It's really windy. Um, and it feels a little more hearty than just a pure liquid. So that one's really delicious to have in a thermos. Or just I can never get enough coffee. So the dirty chai latte that we have in there is another awesome thing to drink while you're skiing. A little boost of energy.
Especially in the morning.
And spicy, yeah.
Yeah.
The last part of the book is tailgate treats, and I realize I never tailgate. No one I ski with tailgates, and I'm just wondering if it's too damn cold here up in Canada. Like, you get back to the car, you're kind of, the sweat's gotten you a bit cold from going down. It's just like, get in the car, get the heater on, get the boots off, get driving. So we don't, I should start doing tailgating treats. It's kind of inspiration for me. But what's your favorite thing to have after a hard day skiing?
Ooh, well, I'll be honest, and we actually don't tailgate much in midwinter either. It's more of a spring thing for us too, because it does get cold here in the Tetons. And there's, if you're in the winter, it just gets dark so early. So if you're done skiing at 4 and you only have 30 minutes of daylight, you got to get home. But I think my favorite in the tailgate section is the pizza. We have this like a portable pizza oven. And just bring a propane tank, throw it in the back of the truck, set it up, and you can have a pizza party in the parking lot. It's a great way to celebrate an awesome day of skiing with your friends. And you're just cranking out pizzas, and people are like, "Where did these come from?" And you're like, "From right here." um,
And yeah, some of the recipes in the tailgate treats also are something like maybe you just have that in your car. And so when you're really cold and you're like, I gotta just get out of here, but you have something in your car and maybe your tailgate is your drive home where you're just, because I feel like every time we get done skiing, you have a bunch of snacks while you're out, but once you get to the car, you become especially hungry. I've never gotten to the car and not been extremely hungry. And having another bar is not that inspiring when you are kind of close to civilization, but you just want something a little more satisfying. And I don't know if this is my favorite. It's my favorite in a way that it has provided me with endless entertainment, but a really special recipe to us is our bale cake, which is in that section of the cookbook. And essentially it's a cake that we make. It doesn't make quite as much sense to like make it and bring it to the trailhead because it might jinx your ski day. But when we've been like out in the backcountry and had to turn around, maybe avalanche danger is too high or whatever we wanted to do was just unsafe to complete, or just it didn't make sense for the day, our consolation when we returned home is that we get to make bale cake if we had to bail on really anything. It's pretty open to interpretation. And it became a way for like us and our friends to kind of celebrate, making safe, conservative decisions in the mountains. And, that's the number one goal of skiing is to come home safely. And so this cake, we make it all the time because we do bail. We'll be like, we're going to go out and ski that. And then, we're pretty conservative skiers. And so sometimes I do feel like we now want to bail because we want the cake, which is kind of like work just kind of come full circle and is sending us the other direction. But it's a really fun recipe that we make all the time and our friends ask for sometimes. And I think I never get tired of it. And it's really easy. It's like a cake with yogurt and berries, and you can usually make it with what you have in the pantry.
I feel like there's a whole marketing campaign around being safe in the mountains and like, yes, celebrate turning around because it's a dangerous thing we're out doing. They just, celebrate. Yeah, we made a good choice. Let's go have some cake and have fun. I love that idea.
Yeah. I hope allies
Um,
can be listening.
Like I'm just thinking like that would be such a good idea. Our last question, do you have a dream ski trip you're going to take this summer? And if so, what's going to be, I assume there's some new snacks you're trying out. You guys are always experimenting. What are you thinking of is going to be the snack to try on it?
The one thing I will say about going on ski trips is that like I hope to go back and ski in Europe again this winter. Like Italy is one of my I studied Italian, and Italy is like one of my favorite places on the planet. But usually when we do travel to ski, we do try to like eat what we can there. And so my hope is to travel to Italy and ski and eat a bunch of delicious pasta in the middle of my ski day, which maybe isn't something that I have made, but I would like to. That does kind of like work its way back, because I would like to have a portable pasta recipe. Maybe I'm kind of thinking something like a big ravioli or something that you could eat like a couple bites with your hands. But I think that is the future of ski snacks, is maybe bringing some of that in. So maybe you'll see us eating, I don't know, ravioli or tortellini on the skin drag.
I feel like lasagna will travel well too in like a little bowl.
Yeah, no shame in having to bring a fork on your ski tour too. We've done that. I've eaten with chopsticks on a ski tour also. Depends on what your goals are for the day.
Max and Lily, thanks for coming on the show today. It was great to hear more about all these great recipes. And once again, the book here is just so much fun. And there's so many good recipes. Again, we haven't used them on any of our adventures yet. We've just been tasting them at home. But they're just wonderful. So congratulations on that. And yeah, thanks for taking time to join us on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Keep us posted on your cinnamon roll flatbread.
Yeah, that is one, because it just looks delicious. For people that want the book, you can find it at the Mountaineers website. You can find it at Barnes and Noble. You can find it on Max and Lily's website, www.beyondskid.com. Go to your local booksellers and ask them to order it in if they don't have it, or you can find it on Amazon. I'll put links to the book in the show notes. And with that, thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the 10 Adventures podcast. We'll be back next week to explore the world and hear about more epic adventures. Bye-bye. Start planning your own adventure by visiting us at 10adventures.com and listen to other episodes of the 10 Adventures podcast on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you find your podcasts.